The rain lashed my apartment windows, a restless drumbeat that echoed the exhaustion dragging at my limbs as I stumbled through the door. I'm Daniel Walsh, a middle school literature teacher, and another day of wrangling seventh graders through the tempest had left me hollow. The hallway's fluorescent lights flickered, buzzing like a swarm of wasps as I wrestled with my keys, the lock resisting, each click a needle to my fraying nerves. Inside, I kicked off my shoes, letting them skid into the shadows, and dropped a teetering stack of ungraded essays onto the coffee table. The world could wait. I needed to breathe. The coffee machine hissed, its bitter steam curling through the air, laced with a metallic tang that stung my throat. I clutched the mug, its warmth a fleeting anchor against the unease coiling in my chest. But the air felt wrong, stale, heavy, like the apartment was holding its breath. Dinner was a mechanical act. Reheated pasta, barely tasted, shoveled down to silence my stomach's complaints. Dishes clattered in the sink, a hollow ritual. Before I sank into bed, the weight of the day pulling me under. Before switching off the light, I called my sister, Sarah, her voice a lifeline amid the eerie news, blackouts, vanishings, and cryptic government warnings that clung to my mind like damp rot. "You look like you've been wrestling ghosts," she teased, her pixelated grin flickering on my phone's screen. "Teenagers are scarier than Caliban's curses," I shot back, forcing a smile that tasted like ash. Her laugh was a balm, but the news reports gnawed at me. Stories of people standing still in the streets, eyes empty, gone. We bantered, her voice a fragile thread, until it severed mid-sentence. The screen spasmed, her face splintering into a mosaic of glitchy pixels before dissolving. A blood-red alert screamed across my phone, the words searing into my retinas. "Emergency government, alert, do not ignore. Seal all windows and doors. Do not make eye contact with anyone standing still. If someone stares at you, look away immediately. These are not human anymore. This phenomenon is spreading. Survive 72 hours. Government aid en route." My breath caught, the mug slipping in my sweat-slick hands. A prank? A hack? My mind scrambled for reason, but a second buzz obliterated my denial. "Rift detected in your region. Effective immediately. Follow the rules above." A cold dread coiled around my throat, tightening with every heartbeat. Sarah, where was she? Was she safe, or... I shook the thought away, but it lingered, a splinter in my mind. My students, Lila, Jamal, Emily, flashed through my head, their faces from today's class, laughing over Prospero's magic. Were they safe? Then I heard it, a sharp, deliberate tap at the window. My heart lurched. It wasn't the rain. It was too precise, too alive. I rose, each step toward the window heavy, as if the air resisted me. The walls pulsed with a faint hum, too low to be real, but it made my teeth ache. My fingers grazed the curtain, trembling, as I peered through a sliver of glass. Down on the street, bathed in the sickly glow of a lamppost, stood a man, utterly still, his head tilted back at an impossible angle, face locked on my window. Rain soaked his clothes, but he didn't flinch, didn't blink. His eyes, too wide, too hollow, seemed to pull at me, a void that hungered for my gaze. I stumbled back, yanking the curtain shut, my pulse a deafening roar. What was he? My phone buzzed again, its glow a cruel intrusion. Warning. Visual contact initiates host conversion. Maintain absolute visual isolation. Do not attempt communication. Panic clawed at my chest, wild and feral. I tore through the apartment, ripping towels from the bathroom, jamming them under doors, sealing every crack. Curtains snapped shut, lights flickered off, plunging the room into a suffocating darkness. The rain's patter was the only sound, a mocking reminder of the world beyond my walls. The air grew heavier, the metallic tang sharper like blood on a knife. Then a creak from the hallway just outside. I froze, my breath so shallow it barely stirred the air. Pressing my ear to the door, I strained to hear over the hammering of my heart. Nothing. Just the hum in the walls, the drip of a faucet. I exhaled, shaky, daring to hope. Look. Address me. The whisper slithered through the door, a grotesque chorus. Dozens, hundreds of voices layered into a single unnatural sound that clawed at my sanity. My knees buckled and I staggered back, the kitchen knife I'd grabbed trembling in my grip. It was useless. They didn't need to touch me. They needed my eyes. I sank to the floor, pulling a blanket over me like a child hiding from monsters. The darkness pressed in, thick and alive, every shadow a threat. The TV flickered on, unplugged, its static a venomous hiss. A voice crackled through, warped and frantic. Dimensional breaches confirmed. Static. Particle collider failure. Entities not from our reality. Require human perception to anchor. Do not observe. Do not look. The static flared and I saw it, a face in the screen stretched and wrong, its eyes black voids that seemed to see me. I scrambled to unplug it, my hands shaking so violently I nearly dropped the cord. The room fell silent, but it wasn't empty. The air felt watched. My phone buzzed. 69 hours remaining. I was a prisoner in a cage of my own making, and they were waiting. The first night was a slow unraveling of my mind. Sleep was a cruel fantasy. Every creak of the building, every tap against the walls, every whisper that bled from the shadows kept me rigid. The knife clutched so tightly my hand cramped. I hid under the coffee table, the blanket a flimsy shield, my breath a traitor that threatened to betray me. The whispers came in waves, sometimes faint, sometimes so close I swore they were inside the walls. Look, address me. Each time I squeezed my eyes shut, tears leaking down my face, praying they'd pass. I found a photo of Sarah on the table, her smile frozen in time, next to a stack of essays with Jamal's messy handwriting on top. My chest tightened. Was Sarah out there, staring blankly, like the man on the street? Were my students, Jamal, Emily, Lila, safe? Or had they looked too? The thought was a blade, twisting deeper with every whisper. I shoved the photo and essays under a book, but Sarah's voice and Jamal's grin echoed in my mind, urging me to check, to look. I pressed my palms to my eyes, willing the temptation away, my breath hitching as I fought the urge to tear the curtains open and scream their names. By the second day, hunger was a dull throb, but fear was a guillotine. I rationed my meager supplies, crackers, a half can of soup, a crumbling granola bar. The water ran cold and tasting of rust, but I sipped it sparingly, terrified it would stop. The footsteps in the hallway grew bolder, more deliberate. Sometimes they'd pause outside my door, and I'd press myself to the floor, lips trembling, waiting for a knock, a scratch, anything. Other times they dragged, slow, wet, as if whatever moved out there was no longer bound by human limits. That night the air grew colder, the hum in the walls louder, a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I was clutching the knife, half delirious, when a new sound froze my blood. A voice soft and achingly familiar from the hallway. "Daniel, it's me," Sarah whispered, her tone perfect, pleading. "Please, let me in. I'm scared." My heart lurched, tears pricking my eyes. I crawled toward the door, fingers brushing the lock, desperate to believe it was her. The door's handle rattled, a faint scrape against the wood. I reached for the knob, my breath hitching, but then the whispers layered over her voice, a grotesque chorus. "Look, address me." I recoiled, sobbing, jamming a chair against the door as the voice warped, no longer hers. "We see you." The hum surged, shaking the floor, and I collapsed, curling into myself, the knife useless in my trembling hands. In a moment of reckless, desperate stupidity, I crept to the window. My hands shook as I parted the curtain a fraction of an inch, driven by a need to know, to see. There, in the street below, stood a little girl. Her hair clung to her face in wet clumps, her skin pale as bone, her mouth hanging open in a silent scream. She wasn't breathing, just waiting. Her eyes blank and unblinking locked onto mine. I knew her. Lila from 2 floors down, always drawing chalk flowers on the sidewalk. She was gone now. Something else stared through her eyes, something that saw me. I slammed the curtain shut and collapsed, a sob tearing from my throat. The knife skittered across the floor. My reflection in the blade seemed wrong, my eyes too wide, too afraid. The whispers returned, closer now, seeping through the walls. Bridge. We see you. The word bridge lodged in my mind, a chilling hint of something vast and incomprehensible. I clapped my hands over my ears, rocking back and forth, willing myself not to scream. On the third day, the world held its breath. The tapping stopped. The whispers fell silent. The absence was worse, a predator's pause before the strike. The sky outside glowed a sickly green, streaked with red lightning that pulsed like a heartbeat. The air was thick now, the metallic tang so sharp it coated my throat. My phone buzzed, its screen cracked but alive. Alert, final phase. Government dampeners en route. Hold position. A low rumble shook the building, rattling the dishes in the sink. Helicopters, their blades carved through the air, a sound so real it shattered the fog of my terror. I crawled to the rooftop, keeping my eyes glued to the ground, refusing to look at the streets below. But I felt them. Bodies, some standing, some crawling. Their presence a weight in the air. A loudspeaker roared, its voice cutting through the city. K! A loudspeaker roared, its voice cutting through the city. Keep your eyes down. Visual dampeners engaged. Rescue in progress. Tears burned my eyes, not from relief, but from the raw animal instinct to survive. The helicopters unleashed pulses, blinding blue waves that rippled through the air like liquid light. Where they passed, the figures convulsed, their bodies twisting into impossible shapes before crumbling into ash that swirled in the wind. A soldier in a hazmat suit grabbed me, his grip bruising as he strapped me into a harness. Don't look back, he snapped, his voice distorted through the mask. But as the helicopter lifted, the city falling away, I couldn't resist. I glanced down, and my heart stopped. There, in the street below, stood Jamal, Emily, and a handful of my other students. Their faces pale, eyes hollow, mouths slack. They weren't breathing, just staring up at me, their heads tilted in perfect unison. Their lips moved silently, a chilling chorus forming the words, "Look, address me." Their gazes bored into me, pulling at my soul, and for a moment I felt the itch behind my eyes flare, urging me to meet their stare. I tore my eyes away, sobbing. My hands clenched so tightly, my nails drew blood. They were gone, my kids, my responsibility, replaced by those things. The soldier's hand clamped onto my shoulder. You survived, he said, his voice softer, almost human. You followed the rules. Then he leaned closer, his mask reflecting the green sky. But it's not over. The rifts, they're everywhere. London, Tokyo, Johannesburg, New York. The whole world's cracking open. These things, they're not stopping. He handed me a crumpled list of safe zones, scrawled with desperate notes. Paris, Eiffel Tower overrun, stay underground. Sydney, harbor sealed, eyes in the water. Delhi, temples silent, don't trust the monks. A radio crackled, a voice from another city, Sao Paulo, screaming about a rift swallowing the skyline before cutting to static. Humanity was fighting, but the rifts were winning. I nodded, my throat raw. Jamal and Emily's faces burned into my mind. I had survived the first wave, learned their weakness, line of sight, the trap of a glance. But the soldier's words echoed everywhere. The phenomenon was global. A plague of eyes and rifts consuming the planet. Sarah, my students, Lila with her chalk flowers. Were they all gone? I gripped the list, its edges biting into my palm, a fragile thread of hope. As the helicopter carried me into the bruised sky, I whispered to myself, a vow carved into my soul, they won't see me. The words were defiance, a blade honed sharp, but as the rift's light pulsed on the horizon, joined by countless others flickering across the globe, a whisper slithered into my mind, not from the air, but from somewhere deeper, behind my eyes. We already have. I blinked, and the itch in my skull surged, like something settling into place. My reflection in the helicopter's window flickered, my eyes glinting with a hollow glow for a heartbeat, before I looked away. Just exhaustion, I told myself. Just fear. But the itch didn't stop.